55 years ago, a drilling crew made a mistake that turned into a hole the size of a stadium and lit it on fire to save their own lives. They figured it would burn out in 2 weeks. It's still burning today. Nobody can prove exactly how it started. Scientists have found living organisms inside it that shouldn't exist. And for the first time since 1971, it's actually dying, which means the clock on seeing this thing might already be running out. Here's everything that's actually true about it. Turkmenistan, a country of 7 million people wedged between Iran and the Caspian Sea that almost nobody outside Central Asia could locate on a map. It's also sitting on one of the biggest energy jackpots on the planet, the 4th largest natural gas reserves on Earth, roughly 9% of the entire planet's known supply. One gas field alone near here, Gulkinish, is the 2nd largest ever discovered anywhere on Earth, bigger than almost every gas deposit found in the US combined. This is the Karakum Desert, black sand. It swallows 70% of the entire country. Summer temperatures here hit 122 degrees Fahrenheit. Winter can drop below freezing the same year, and 260 kilometers of that desert stand between you and the nearest city. Getting a visa into this country requires a government-registered sponsor and an assigned government guide for your entire stay. Turkmenistan sits on press freedom rankings next to North Korea, which means for 5 decades this next thing existed mostly as a rumor nobody could verify firsthand. There it is, 70 meters wide, almost a full football field, 30 meters deep, enough depth to drop a 10-story building inside with room to spare. And it's on fire right now and has been continuously since sometime around 1971. Locals named it the door to hell. The government prefers the shining of Karakum, which tells you everything about how 2 groups can look at the exact same fire and see completely different things. For most of its existence, almost no outsider ever stood at this rim. It was a legend passed between backpackers and Soviet engineers, more talked about than photographed. That's about to change, because in the last 15 years, people finally went and checked what was actually happening down there.
Here's the mechanism, step by step. In 1971, a date historians still can't fully confirm, Soviet geologists drilled here hunting for oil. Instead, the drill bit punched into a massive underground gas pocket. The ground below the rig gave out. The rig dropped straight into the cavity that opened underneath it. Natural gas is mostly methane, CH4. Colorless, in its raw state, odorless, and in high concentration, it's lethal to breathe and explosive on contact with a spark. It was pouring out of this new hole uncontrolled, with a drilling camp sitting right next to it. So the engineers made a calculated trade: burn it. Combustion converts methane into carbon dioxide and water vapor, both far less immediately dangerous than a raw methane leak next to a work camp. Their prediction: the underground pocket would empty out in a few weeks, and the fire would starve itself to death. That prediction missed by roughly 2,860 weeks, and counting. Here's why it never ran out. This was never one sealed pocket of gas. It's plumbed into a much larger reservoir system beneath the region, the same geological formation feeding the massive gas fields nearby. Gas keeps migrating upward continuously through porous rock and fracture lines, refueling the flame from below in a slow, steady drip, rather than one finite tank draining to zero.
Fire needs exactly 3 ingredients to keep going: fuel, oxygen, and ignition.
This crater has been supplying all three non-stop for over half a century. Methane rising from underground, oxygen pouring in through the open pit, and the fire itself acting as a permanent ignition source for every new pocket of gas that reaches the surface. It's not burning down a stockpile, it's a closed loop that resets itself every second. Estimates on volume burned range from roughly 1 million to several million cubic meters of gas per year, depending on which period researchers measured. Multiply that across 55 years, and you get a fire that has converted tens of millions of dollars worth of fuel directly into heat and CO2 for zero economic benefit, non-stop, since before color television was common in most American homes. And here's the detail almost no other video on this topic tells you straight. There is no confirmed Soviet paperwork behind any of it. No drilling log, no signed incident report, no agreed-upon date. Some geologists place the real event later than 1971 entirely. We can measure the fire down to the degree. We can't actually prove the story of how it began. We know exactly how it keeps burning. What we didn't know, until one person actually went down there, was whether anything could survive inside it.
A Canadian explorer named George Karunis does something nobody had attempted in over 40 years of this fire's existence. He descends into it. Custom fireproof suit rated for extreme radiant heat, a harness system, a support crew running the line from the rim. 17 minutes at the bottom, temperatures down there that would kill an unprotected person within seconds. His job, collect soil samples from the crater floor in a place nobody had ever physically reached before. What came back from those samples stunned the scientists who studied them. Living bacteria, specifically thermophilic microorganisms, recovered from soil pockets close enough to open flame that survival there breaks most basic assumptions about what fire does to biology. Here's the part that actually matters scientifically, not just as a curiosity. Extremophile bacteria from environments like this one have already changed medicine once before. The heat-tolerant enzyme behind PCR, the lab process behind modern DNA testing and every COVID PCR test ever run, came from a thermophilic bacterium discovered in Yellowstone's hot springs. Nobody's claiming Darvaza will produce the next medical breakthrough, but the biological principle is identical, and it's sitting inside an active fire pit in the middle of a desert nobody visits.
Now the twist nobody sees coming. January 2022, then-President Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedov publicly orders the crater extinguished. Official reasoning: non-stop methane pollution, health risks to nearby residents, and gas reserves burning for zero profit that could otherwise be sold. A government commission is formed to figure out how. Nothing visibly changes for a while, the kind of announcement that usually just evaporates, except this one didn't. Starting around 2022, engineers begin drilling containment wells around the crater's perimeter, built to intercept underground gas before it ever reaches the flame and reroute it elsewhere entirely. By 2025, Turkmenistan's state energy company reports the fire has shrunk to roughly 1/3 its former size. Independent tour operators confirm it. Scattered pockets of flame near the base now, instead of the wall-to-wall glow that used to define nighttime photos of this place for 50 years. Late 2025, a formal technical plan to fully extinguish it is announced. No confirmed date attached.
which means this fire, the one that outlasted the USSR, 5 American presidents, and every single prediction ever made about it, might finally go out not from running dry, but from a government decision made in an office.
A 2-week miscalculation turned into a fire that's been burning for over half a century, hosting life that shouldn't survive it, sitting on top of one of the largest untapped energy reserves on the planet, and it's currently, actively, being extinguished on purpose for the first time since it started. Whatever you think you know about this crater, the ending hasn't been written yet. It's happening right now. Coordinates are in the description. If you know a place with a story this strange, drop it below.